Coming up this week, Stripe and Figma showcase some incredible new AI products that you won't want to miss. OpenAI welcomes a shock new CEO, and a new study from AWS tells us what a massive 92% of tech employers are looking for in new recruits in 2025. Stay tuned for all of that and more, and if you enjoyed the briefing, hit the subscribe and the like button. But first this week, Google has updated their Gemini 2.5 Pro model with some new coding capabilities. Their latest model now sits firmly on top of the web dev leaderboard and comes with new capabilities including video to code. So this is a new capability that can be used to transform video footage into functional web apps. So in this example, you can see how video recordings can be transformed into functional web apps, as well as the ability to create dynamic interactive simulations. So in this example, a simulation has been created of the meme that was going around the other day of gorillas versus humans. But it's not just Google that's in the news this week regarding AI coding tools. Amazon is also working on a secret new product called Kiro, which has been leaked this week, that uses AI agents to help product development teams write code. According to the leak, it's a web and desktop app that can be customized to work with both first-party agents and third-party agents. But it's OpenAI this week that has taken up most of the headlines when it comes to AI coding tools, with rumors that it is set to acquire AI coding tool Windsurf for a massive $3 billion. Now, this would pit it directly against tools from the likes of Microsoft with its Visual Studio and GitHub Copilot. At the moment, Windsurf is model agnostic, but it's not clear what a potential acquisition might do to this strategy. And not everyone was impressed with this announcement. One user on X went viral for asking the very basic question of why didn't OpenAI just build one? And according to one person in the replies at least, the answer to that question in big tech companies is often, we simply don't know how. This news will also do nothing to quell the rumors that have been brewing over the past few weeks that a rift is occurring between OpenAI and Microsoft, as reports suggest this week that OpenAI is now seeking to reduce its revenue sharing agreements with Microsoft. And in other OpenAI news, the company has confirmed that it has hired Instacart's CEO, Figma Make, to become their CEO of applications. Seymour has a pretty strong background in product management and monetization, with previous stints at both Facebook and eBay. And this CEO of applications is a pretty unique job title. Sam Altman announced the new CEO in a blog post over on OpenAI, and I'm looking forward to seeing what products she cooks up in this new role. As we've said previously, as models become more commoditized, the application layer is where companies should be able to differentiate. And it's interesting to see this term application here used to reflect this. We'll be taking a look at some examples of the application of AI with some new tools you can use shortly, so stay tuned for that. In other news this week, Figma and Stripe each held major conferences this week. And for Figma, the most significant announcement was the launch of a new product called Figma Make. So this is a direct vibe coding competitor to tools like Lovable that allows users to describe exactly what they'd like to make through a conversational interface and build an app from it in seconds. The advantage here for Figma over other tools like Lovable, though, is that Figma Make connects fully into the Figma ecosystem, where prototypes can connect to real data sources that may have previously been integrated. So this is actually the latest chapter in a pretty serious feud between Lovable and Figma. Lovable's co-founder has previously mocked Figma over on X, joking that Lovable was set to acquire Figma earlier this year. Lovable's co-founder also shared a letter from Figma's general counsel warning Lovable that Figma was the owner of the trademark Dev Mode. I can't imagine that this announcement from Figma will do anything to repair relations between those two, but it'll certainly be interesting from a product perspective to see if Figma's moat is strong enough to contain the threat from tools like Lovable. The infamous Steve Jobs quote where he declared that Apple would go thermonuclear on Android springs to mind on this occasion. And the other conference this week that took place is Stripe's Sessions Conference. And this week it unveiled a series of new products, features and functionalities which could be pretty interesting for product development teams. Some of the most important ones worth knowing about include the launch of Payments Intelligence and Checkout Suite. This is a collection of AI-powered products designed to help boost conversion during the checkout process and also improve authorization rates. Stripe says that it now supports over 125 different payment methods, and it uses AI to decide which methods to show to users. It says this has led to an 11.9% revenue boost for merchants who switch it on. They also announced a new API called the Order Intents API, which is a new feature that enables AI agents to autonomously handle purchases, and the launch of Stripe Profiles, which are public identities for businesses, which allow companies to do things like pay instant invoices between different products. And speaking of agentic payments, if you're interested in learning more about how these work, over on Substack this week, I take a deep dive into how agentic payments work from a non-engineer's perspective. I explore the key technologies involved, including tokenization, MCP, and more, along with some real-world use cases and opportunities for product teams. So if you're interested in learning more about how agentic payments work, then take a look at that over on Substack this week. Now let's take a look at some tools you can use, and we'll start with a tool I came across this week called Stitch. And if you're somebody who builds Apple-centric product, then Stitch is probably the prototyping tool for you. So it's built on top of modern Apple technologies like Swift UI, and it's open source as well. So it allows you to do things like create prototypes in 3D as well as AR. And some of the examples on their website are pretty impressive. So if you work at a company who builds products specifically for Apple devices, then Stitch might be of interest to you. Next is a slightly controversial product which is called Emma, and they describe themselves as your universal AI employee. As more and more companies look to AI to replace humans in the workplace, this company makes it explicitly clear how this AI employee can help you to do that. It comes with a bunch of pre-built AI agents that can perform certain roles, including a sales and marketing agent, which will analyze data and write proposals, an employee experience agent that will work as a recruiter, an onboarding assistant, and a HR document writer, as well as a more traditional customer support agent that helps to serve your customers. So Emma has raised over $25 million so far, and is one of many companies I suspect that we'll start to see emerge that offer these type of agentic products that explicitly position themselves as AI employees. And the final tool for this week is something called Face. And this is a product that is featured in the most recent Y Combinator batch. And the promise here is that Face transforms your documents into what they call extraordinary pages. So this is a very focused application of generative AI that allows you to transform your documents into interactive websites. Some of the examples on their website include things like a monochrome business card, a resume that's transformed into a wiki, and a bunch of others as well. So if you're looking for ways to spruce up your resume, or you just want to transform some of your most important documents into something that looks a bit more presentable at work, then check out Face. And speaking of making documents look pretty, Grok released a PDF export functionality this week that allows users to transform prompt outputs into PDFs. Now, there's something strangely satisfying about reading PDFs, and this is powered by a technology called LaTeX. So here's an example of a PDF that I generated based upon some inputs I shared over on Grok. Now let's take a look at some data and trends for the week. And first up, we have a major new study commissioned by AWS, which is the Generative AI Adoption Index report. And in this, they find that 60% of companies have already appointed a chief AI officer, but a massive 92% of organizations now want generative AI talent in 2025. This study was a comprehensive study of over 3,700 senior tech decision makers, and they asked them what degrees of AI experience levels were required for their roles. And as you can see from this graph, over 92% of respondents said that at least some AI knowledge was required. And then when you split that out into different experience levels, you can see that moderate is the most, followed by limited, followed by extensive. But the key takeaway here is that only 8% of senior tech employers are saying that they don't require any AI experience, which is pretty incredible when you think about how quickly things are moving. And speaking of the application of AI in the workplace, Duolingo's CEO says that using AI at work has drastically accelerated the speed at which the company can now produce content. Speaking this week, he said that delivering the first 100 courses took about 12 years. And now, in about 1 year, the company was able to create and launch nearly 150 new courses. Here's a chart that shows that in context, but some users say that this coincides with a drop in quality. Speaking on X, this user said that there's been a huge decrease in quality since they switched to AI. AI translates word for word, while employees, or in other words humans, translate by recreating the meaning within the confines of grammar rules. Duolingo, they say, is sacrificing functionality for profits and killing their app in the process. What do you think? Do you think the trade-off is worth it? Let me know in the comments below. Meanwhile, it was revealed this week that Apple is actively seeking alternative partners for its search on Safari, which could have a dramatic negative impact on Google. A senior exec at Apple said that Google searches had dropped for the first time in 22 years, and that Apple is now actively exploring alternative providers for its search in Safari, including the likes of OpenAI and Perplexity. After this tidbit was released to the media, Google's stock plummeted a massive 7% following the news. Google has been experimenting with new UX patterns. And if you're interested in learning more about new UX patterns, then over on Substack this week, I take a look at 25 different examples of UX patterns from companies, including Google, YouTube, Notion, Reddit, and more. So head over to that if you're interested in learning more about how UX is evolving as a result of AI. In other data this week, Accenture's Chief AI Officer says that between 10 to 15% of her clients are currently using multi-AI agent systems, but she expects this to exceed 30% within 18 to 12 months. So multi-AI agent systems involve multiple different AI agents, each in distinct different roles, working towards common goals. And as part of this piece over on the Wall Street Journal, they also shared other examples of how companies are using multi-AI agents in the real world. This includes examples from Amazon in retail operations, where AI agents handle demand forecasting and inventory allocation, as well as examples from financial companies like Principal Financial Group, which says that they use AI agents for tasks like software engineering, claim summarization, and post-call analytics. Other leaders to make bold predictions about the future of AI this week include Windsurf CEO. He says that developers won't actually exist in a traditional sense pretty soon, and instead they will transform into what he calls builders. He says that since AI is going to be adding 10 times the amount of leverage very shortly, there will be no space for engineers who do tasks that involve boilerplate code, and instead engineers will transform into more like product builders. He was speaking on a podcast with Y Combinator, and clearly he has his own vested interests here because he's the Windsurf CEO. But the general consensus now does seem to be that software engineering as we know it has been transformed forever, and nobody's quite sure what the future looks like, except that the days of simply writing code without any further context seem to be over. And finally, I'll leave you with this, which is that the average American now has fewer than 3 friends. But according to Mark Zuckerberg at least, they have demand for at least 15. And guess what? AI can fill that gap. Following the launch of Meta's new standalone AI app, Mark Zuckerberg envisions a future where we have a series of personalized AI friends that can supplement but not necessarily replace your real ones. What do you think? Would you replace your friends with AI? Just something to think about. And on that note, I'll leave it there. Thanks very much for listening and watching. I'll be back next week with another briefing.